It is at this point in the Australian football calendar, with NPL kicking off, A-League Women's reaching a climactic conclusion, and the A-League Men's ramping up with more games than ever before, that your humble national curriculum hosts tend to get a little fatigued. So on tonight's episode, I'm proposing a little change to the regular format. It's not going to interrupt the flow of the podcast. It's just every 20 minutes, we're going to have to take a short drinks break. And, we just need to refresh ourselves. It's for the good of the podcasters, but it will provide a convenient opportunity for our partners to hear a few messages from them. So, looking forward to the integration tonight.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble. And I don't want to be in big trouble.
I think that clip might get a few goes round on tonight's podcast.
Not from me.
The long run-up. Ante has been just winding up. This run-up's been coming for about days. Strap in, folks.
It's going to be emotional.
I am Josh Parish. We've got Joey Lynch and Ante Jukic with us tonight. Once he's finished writing, Nick D'Urbano might pop in as well. From the Amy Park press box, there he is.
45 minutes. Right.
He'll be listening along, I'm sure. But, gentlemen, let's start with the goal that broke the internet, at least until it was yanked off it. Ben Garuccio with the Scorpion kick in Western United's 3-2 win over Western Sydney Wanderers. If you're listening on the podcast, that's our background today. But hopefully we've obscured it enough with our heads to avoid a DCMA claim. Gentlemen, is this the goal of the season?
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't want to expand on that anymore? Give me some colour.
I mean, it's potentially the best goal in A-League history. I mean, if Riley
done it.
Riley McGree didn't mean it.
Yeah, this was at least premeditated when you think about Priovic's ball into Garuccio, actually having to adjust and not really just chucking a boot up there. Irrespective of Gordon's positioning off the rotation after Agawa, because he's actually told Agawa to rotate on to, I think it was Adisu Bayu, who did very well coming on, by the way, tonight. Nice to see him perform and adapt very well to A-League football. However, Gordon was kind of in no man's land after rotating off, but Priovic actually put in a millimeter perfect ball, basically, for just over Gordon, so he couldn't catch it, and Garuccio adapted really well to it. It's a goal of the season. I don't think we'll see much better than that.
Yeah, it's going to go viral around the world. I mean,
but on the A-League terms.
On the A-League terms, I don't know whether the Puskás Award. I don't know. Maybe Mo Salah accidentally falls over and scores a goal and wins it again. But that's a genuine. We use the hyperbole all the time. Oh, it's a Puskás contender. No, that's a legit Puskás contender. Garuccio, I don't know. Do you get a trip to Switzerland for that? Garuccio might be getting a trip to Switzerland for that.
It was a very impressive piece of acrobatic skill. Rene Higuita style, as Andy Harper pointed out on the commentary. That goal took everybody off guard. But what do we think generally about Western United's performance in this game? I thought Alexander Priovic had his best match in green and black in terms of what he was able to do, combining with the players around him. And the scoreline suggests that maybe they've found something up front that they didn't have previously.
I mean, on Priovic himself, I don't think anybody. He looks a lot fitter than he did when he first came out. He looks a lot more svelte, and he looks a lot more like a leading line number 9. And he's scoring now, and that the confidence. If you are a striker, if you start scoring, you tend to keep scoring. That's just the nature of the beast about the psychological makeup of strikers. Now, I had to watch large portions of this game on my phone on a cab home from the airport, but I would also say that from what I could see, Wanderers' approach, especially in that first half, wasn't exactly conducive to making Prijovic have to try a lot in certain aspects of the game. Yeah, I mean, you were there, Ante. You probably were able to see, like, off the ball when the camera wasn't actually on Prijovic, that wasn't a lot that he had to struggle for.
It kind of helps that he didn't have to do a lot of defensive work in the first 45 minutes with Bacchus and, Troisi and Antonis in front of him, and Hammett up front, and Petrados together with the pitch, together on the pitch with Troisi. Not starting Lugakovic, personally, it just makes no sense. And as soon as he came on, it was a very, very different game. Not really a surprise for anyone who's been listening to this show. But I will admit I have minor outbursts in the press box every now and then when I see some play that is, counter to logic and practicality.
he does. Just ask Dominic Bossi.
Hi, Dominic. However, tonight was ridiculous. Like, the first 10 minutes, Prijovic and Diamante didn't even have to do anything. They didn't even have to press onto Chanchad and Rodwell at centre back because Bacchus wasn't really opening in any kind of position to receive the ball from him. How many times you saw the pass go or play go between Chanchad and Rodwell, and then Westerner immediately picking the ball up when it filters out wide, because they're getting absolutely nothing through their midfield. Oh, what a surprise! Their best midfielder isn't on the pitch. But I feel as though I don't know whether to interpret that game as whether that had more to do with Western Sydney's first half or Western United's first half or second half. Sorry, because once those changes were made, once Najarine and Ugarkovic came on and gave Western Sydney a different dynamic in possession, Western United rather were actually teetering for significant portions of that second half, and Hammett had good opportunities to equalise. And you'd think after half time that should, at 2-0, you'd think that's job done from Western United's perspective, but it wasn't. And we were coming on to this, after the Sydney game when they temporarily ended the job share. How much of this is down to Western United's ability to defend stoutly, and how much of this is down to the relatively low functionality of teams in possession in the A-League? Once there are players who can actually play without the ball, and Western are defending a league, they have faced some relative difficulty.
I have to admit, watching the first half of this game, although I found the second half very entertaining, the first half was horrendous. The standard of defending was, it was pedestrian, to say the least. Just basic stuff, like if there's no pressure on the ball, drop the defensive line 10 yards so you can't play the ball straight over the top. Like, this is Sunday League stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? Actually, now because probably because the broadcast doesn't show it, but Prijovic was actually lingering in an offside position and then retreats, and so he's timed that exceptionally well in relation to Tomoki Imai's ball over the top, and so. How like Cavani times runs so perfectly, it's almost like he's offside half the time, but he really isn't. That's kind of the vibe I got with that Prijovic start in behind, because he timed that really well, and Chanchad did stop. That was probably the one mistake he did make in an otherwise very good game, and a pretty good couple of games actually when you take into account his performance against a victory as well. I think that was just more good offense beating good defense, to use an American expression.
I want to come back to the marketing of the A-League men's and the clip being deleted. We assume due to some pressure from the rights holders. Is this a bit of a microcosm of how the A-League is promoted, as you said, only on their terms? Because one of the things that makes the NBA online community so, I guess, authentic in a league that's either otherwise kind of dominated by gimmickry is the fact that people can upload their own highlights. and it's not policed at all. And it actually makes the league more present in the online space. I think it actually benefits the competition rather than this, I guess, old-fashioned approach of you got to protect what's ours. Joey?
Well, like before I launch into my own spiel, I'm going to read off the tweets of two individuals that know this. So first, Adam Peacock obviously worked for Fox Sports for Yonks when they were the rights holders. Quote, they seriously got real ALM. I think he meant to at them, but he didn't quite manage it, to delete a tweet that was bouncing around the world, getting free publicity to our league because they're going to pick off every screen record version that is out there too, ? And then Stuart Randall, who is currently Ante and I's boss at the worldwide leader in sports, but spent a long time working for SBS on their football coverage. He's covered World Cups. He's done all that. Need to follow the NBA route. Annoying as hell as a rights holder, but the social free-for-all is part of what makes the association the way it is, as you said, Josh. Yeah, so I genuinely think this is a massive own goal. I thought it was funny, that the A-League memes got it up within seconds and it had like 50,000 views and it was up for 40 minutes before 10 got theirs out. I thought that was funny.
It's a miracle that they were actually able to find the rewind button.
Apparently, the admin that was there saw the goal live and knew he had seconds to get it up on Paramount before the delay, and then he got it up that way. So that's strong work from him. But yeah, like that A-League memes video now, I saw just a couple of the tweets I saw that would have been retweeted by Max Rushton, who has legions of followers. I saw that it had been retweeted by a Scottish journalist, Barry Anderson, with 20,000 followers. It had 50,000 views. God knows how many quote tweets. God knows how many people who have just on their iPhones held the video and tweeted out the video again. And now they're all gone. And like that momentum is gone. Like the people quote tweeting it and seeing that on those journos pages, now they're just going to see, if they look at the pages, all they're going to see is just a blank, like page not found, or just like a URL that leads to nothing because the tweet got yanked down. And that's lost. It's not going to go as viral as it could have, because the magic of these viral moments is that they happen immediately. There's an organic sense of, oh my God, did you see this? And share it around. And, when it's been out there and it's yanked down, people aren't going to go out of their way after they've quote tweeted it once, seen that it's get yanked down. They won't go back and quote tweet the official source. And even if they do, it won't get the same organic follow-up that it did the first time. And it just frustrates me. Like, we're talking about the NBA, and Nick Stoll's here, so he can't stop me. But it was also a huge thing in pro wrestling. I mean, one could argue that All Elite Wrestling would not exist had it not been for accounts gifting the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega in New Japan Pro Wrestling and exposing them to a Western audience, and the Bullet Club to a Western audience the way it did. Just active fan support matters. And just
there's another sporting organization that actually learned this lesson, recently. That would be Formula One. Once a change in ownership came, they tried to control all kinds of content on social media and would hit it with the ban hammer quite robustly and quickly. And then it wasn't until the change in ownership that they realized that they have to be more open to social media engagement. I won't look at the A-League in isolation as that they are the only culprits in this, because when you look at the City R running a piracy campaign while their fans have racist fans and whatnot, and it's not football isn't the A-League isn't exactly alone or exclusive in this respect. I think in football there is a large predisposition to control, and that control is what links to last night when talking about Jason Cummings' criticism of the drinks break or the ad break, however you want to call it, and Central Coast having to thus delete their tweet because it criticized the league and it removed the A-League's control of the narrative. That's not good. But I think at the end of the day, and this is something I mentioned last night, it's hard not to look at the response to the drinks break and the drinks or the ad break itself in context of disappointing viewership. And because it's not just the product that we see on the pitch that's been disappointing, it's been the packaging of the A-League as a broadcast. And it has been, save for some exceptions, it has been immensely disappointing. And go from user experience. Now we mentioned at the start of the season that, you know, it would be reasonable of us to give a grace period. And now we're a significant, way down the season already, and things don't really look like changing. And that is a gross misunderstanding of the target audience, because the soccer public has had enough of bullshit. They deserve better. They deserve to be treated better. And this, frankly, isn't good enough.
I think my frustration with everything, and trigger warning, I'm about to do it again, as I've written about in my Guardian piece tomorrow. It's just a small line, but it's disappointing in the sense that there's 1,000 people that compare, this is just the realities of doing sport now. And, the APL said that they would be better. Like, the APL came out and said, we want to put the fans first. We've learned we can do this better. And now we're getting ad breaks during live play.
Something that's counter to the very fabric of the game.
It's all about the football.
The game, yeah.
Yeah, fans were promised better. It's not just that the fans deserve better. They were promised better. They were promised, we went through Tuba Guy and the Fox Sports down years, and we were promised this was going to be better. And, yes, Australian football's relationship with Fox Sports had probably reached its conclusion, but I could pause games on KO Sports and rewind games and
watch it in 1080p.
And do all of that sort of stuff. And I mean, it's we're in a situation like that, and this is going to be a very niche thing, but as a journalist, if you need to go back and check something, you better hope that the league uploads the video on Twitter or Facebook or something as a highlight, because otherwise you ain't going back and checking it, because there's literally no way.
And they'll take an hour to do it if tonight
is
any guy.
There are.
We digress.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble.
So right now, that's a situation. That's a very niche complaint, but that's the thing, and it's not even. And you ask the clubs don't have control over that either. The clubs can't rip stuff off the feed either. Basically, there's a central office that is sending the clips to the clubs to post on social media. So if the clubs want to post something, they better hope that the central hub has sent them the video of it. Otherwise, they can't. Basically, as Ante said, control. It is just so centralized in the one thing. And it's not, I mean, I understand the APL cannot bully Viacom and Paramount into doing what they want, but why wasn't this part of the discussion in the first place? I don't know. It's coming. When? Where's the roadmap? Just, I don't all of this sort of stuff. It's coming. When is it coming? When is, when is the pause button and rewind coming? When is all the other stuff coming? When is the good stuff we were promised?
Does an app update take a whole season?
Say that again.
Does an app update take a whole season?
I don't it basically takes as long as it takes for the Americans, as far as I can tell, it takes as long as the Americans over at Paramount to decide to do it and make it a priority. And guess where a league of men's and women's falls on the list of priorities for the Americans?
As far as I understand, and this is from piecing together stuff I've heard versus, Danny Townsend's
we're all piecing together. We're all piecing together stuff that we've heard, because nobody's just come out and explained what's going on. So it's all we can do.
It's just kicking the can down the road, false promise after false promise at the moment. But from what I understand, the app that they're using is not the same app that is used in the USA for Paramount Plus. They've already got all that infrastructure sorted. So it's the opposite approach from something like Netflix, where you log on and it is the same UX, same user experience as anywhere in the world, and they just geo-block the content to the particular region that you're in. But for I don't know what reason, maybe they don't want people using VPNs and accessing their other content. For I don't know why, but they are basically rebuilding the Paramount Plus infrastructure, or the stack, as I've seen it described euphemistically, from scratch. So I just don't understand that approach, why that's the move, when there are so many other examples of other streaming services, be it sports or entertainment, having the exact same user experience globally, and you don't have to start from scratch with your Samsung Smart TV app or your PlayStation app, etc., etc., etc.
Just on behalf of Sean Mooney, who's tweeted at the show, what we need is a bespoke solution taking on a growth mindset, taking into account the needs of supporters and the commercial integrations of the stream. We need to establish a trust environment between the league and supporters, value upholding the game that we do hold, but also we need agile content that can meet the demands of the young people. We need to investigate means of tokenized digital engagement and the NFT space to see what we can do. The prevailing commercial eco space that we exist. I don't know what the fuck that means. We need concrete measure of improvements surrounding things such as non-fungible tokens. We need to find utility for the token. Moving forward, we need to shift the paradigm in a robust commercial environment. There you go, Sean Mooney. I got all 13 that you sent through.
More meaningless language than player pathways.
I mean, I've got a theory as to why it takes them so long to upload any of the highlights or get the match replays up. It's because it takes a lot of processing power and time to get things minted on the blockchain. So
it's hard. Look, it's pretty hard to develop things from the eye of Sauron.
It gets hot in there.
But
go on, Joe.
Seriously, I have no doubt that eventually they'll figure out how to put a pause button on the stream. Like they'll put a pause button on there on the stream. They'll put the rewind on there. Things are going to get better. My problem is how many bridges with fans will be burnt before then? How much trust will be lost? Like I said, but like the APL came in and they were the beneficiaries of so much goodwill. You know, ding dong, the witch is dead. Football Australia is gone. Fox Sports is gone. Here comes the APL and Paramount. Like, it was insane. I remember we were having discussions before the season. Yeah, like we were having discussions before the season. We were just amazed about how excited people were about the new paradigm. I mean, it was remarkable how quickly Paramount became the saviors of the A-Leagues after it had been Optus Sports for about 2 years, but I digress. But they had so much goodwill, and it's just gone because there's no pause button or rewind button. Like, I mean, yes, there's a lot more reasons than that, but just like the UX on the streaming service.
The worst thing about it. The worst thing about
fundamental.
Yeah. The paramount, or let's say gripe that I have with the broadcasting is that the intelligence of the viewer is insulted, quite frankly. There are games where we are treated to 45 to 90 minutes of pure dross, and then we are greeted by, wow, what a game that was. Don't insult my fucking intelligence. Soccer people, or football people, to use another Sean Mooneyism, they're smarter than that. They've put up with enough bullshit over the course of their history as fans and as people and as, let's say, members of the soccer community. They don't want to have their intelligence insulted by people within their own community. This is bullshit. We need better.
I'm just spot on. Like, it was the same conversation myself and Nick were having with Max Rushton the other Monday on FNR. Like, you can't bullshit football fans. just because you've bought the rights to a product doesn't mean you have to smile with a mouthful of fake teeth and try and convince people that, they're watching the best league in the world when, what you need is a critical lens. And
we don't get that with a Ryan Seacrest type asking vacuous questions to people who don't understand football. Sorry, part of my anger.
But it's grim. I
understand.
Switch off if they know you're selling them a lemon.
I'm like, I was just like, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for myself for a job here. Like, I know enough about football to write with it. The X's and O's of football to write about it when called upon. But I recognize my strength in football is like the narrative and the human interest stories and the context. I recognize that. Like, I know more about the X's and O's than most, but I have enough awareness to know how little I know because I know a bit. But we don't always have to have players as pundits. You can go out there and you can find and there's somebody else on the TNC football that would be perfectly suited for this, but I'm not going to throw him under the bus and say that he should have a gig. But there are people that know ball out there that just because they aren't players doesn't mean they shouldn't get the opportunity to talk about it. Like, what should matter is the quality of the analysis. That's been a bugbear of mine for years. It's not exclusive to the APL. Or not the APL. It's not exclusive to Paramount or Australian football or just any sport in general. Like, some of the best analysts you've ever seen never played the game, but they live and breathe the game and they know it. So that's one thing that frustrates me. But yeah, on the quality of analysis, like I said, I'm not angling for a job, but there are others that deserve a shot as well. I'm not advocating for anybody to lose their job, and I think when you look at the viewing numbers, let's face it, only the core is watching at this point. Give the core what they want.
Yeah, they don't want to be fed bullshit.
To quote Batista, give me what I want. I don't know. I'm sorry to all our listeners and viewers. I am super tired. I have been working 13-hour days for 6 days in a row now, so I'm struggling to articulate what I really mean. But I guess just my overall sense is that and it's not just been the broadcast this week. This week we also had story of Fiona Wirtz going to work at McDonald's after scoring 5 goals. And in the meantime, we don't have any confirmation. It's not confirmed that the Mariners and Western United are coming into the A-League Women's competition next year. That's the hope. That's the goal. It's not official yet. And we don't know about when we'll get full home and away and fully professional. And I'm just I wanted more from this. I really hoped for more. And I understand the limits. I'm just I know I can. It's a lot funnier for me to go out there and start, ranting and raving and being pithy and all that. But I'm just sad. I wanted more. This was supposed to be a new. I know I'm bitterly cynical, so I didn't expect it, but it was labeled a new era. It was a new thing, and this week, sorry, we also had Melbourne Victory versus Western Sydney Wanderers in front of less than 5,000 people at CommBank Stadium, playing a terrible game of football in front of barely any fans that made barely any noise. And I'm just
and then a few days later, the best game of the season by a significant distance, and no one's there to watch it. There are more people watching. There are more people watching the Collingwood intra-club game than people actually watching the City Newcastle game.
Facts.
Piss off, D'Urbano.
This league. Excitement. Sorry, I will say the excitement coming into this season was from people who were relieved that the gravy train was still going. It wasn't for the fact that there wasn't going to be any change whatsoever with respect to how the clubs operate.
No, I'm going to disagree there. I think there was hope that things would change. It might have been forlorn hope. It might have been misplaced hope, misguided hope, stupid hope. But there was but you know, you love a blank slate. Humanity loves a blank slate. Humanity loves a narrative. That I don't think it's like it wasn't unfair to have hope that things would get better. I mean, as I said, forlorn maybe. If you're actually inside the bubble and speaking to people every day and you're seeing that nothing's changed, yeah, maybe not. But I don't think it was unreasonable to have high expectations. And I mean, I still have hope. Maybe this could all turn around. I want it to turn around. Like, none of us enjoy sitting here shitting on things just for the sake of shitting on things. We take issues with.
Come on now. Look, I shit on things because I care.
Exactly. We do this because we care. Like, I'm going to swear, we fucking live and breathe this game of football. You know, like, we go to, you know, like me and Ante are basically at every A-Liga game in the state, basically. Unless, you know, we're in isolation or we have one of the very few things on that we consider is more important. You know, like Josh, you're out at community grounds all year. You were commentating on the African Cup of Nations recently down here in Victoria. We love this game. We don't shit on it because we just hate it and it's fun. We want this game to be great. It should be fucking great. It's the best game on the fucking planet. By a million miles.
Was Stephen Lowy right? Is the independent A-League actually a sham? Is there any tangible benefit that we've seen since the
there's a difference between concept and execution. I'll just say that.
Yes. True. But do the people running the league now have Australia's best interests or Australian football's best interests at heart?
I mean,
does anyone?
Oh, well.
Because we were as you covered, Joe, we were promised a lot from the new broadcasters, but also don't forget during the conference wars, we were, the Congress wars, I should say, we were promised a massive amount of investment in the game. The club owners say, if we can run it, we will pump money into this league. We will make it as good as it can be. And yes, that was pre-COVID, etc. and so on. Excuses. But I haven't seen any evidence of that so far when Fiona Wirtz has to work at the Macca's drive-thru. Okay.
Honestly, I don't think we have much more to add on this because I think we've said what needs to be said.
Let's get better. Like APL, fucking kill it, guys. Do it. I believe in you guys. Kill it. Make the A-League the best league in Asia. Tell us that that's your goal, to make the A-Leagues the best leagues in Asia, and tell us how you're going to get there.
We were only mentioning, with respect to the second division, that we don't want, or Teo, specifically mentioned that we don't want perfect to be the enemy of good, and we have to be more open to ideas, but have ideas and experiments and trial and error that actually has the game and what makes the game such a profound game and a profound reflection of man or humankind at heart. And we don't have that. But I don't want to get into a really cynical take with respect to the concept of the A-League as a whole, but we need to have the game at heart, and we have to have the best interests of the game at heart. There's enough evidence to suggest that at the moment we don't, both on and off the pitch. We haven't even spoken about what's going on the pitch.
Yeah, barely. I mean, but it does strike me though, with NPL Victoria kicking off this weekend, that there are thousands and thousands of people who do deeply care about the football, and there just isn't enough to play for in the A-League for people to keep coming in droves. That's what's at the heart of it for me, really.
Let's not pretend that the NPL is full of altruistic saints with the best interests of their fellow man at heart either. There's plenty of shysters going around the NPL and the state leagues as well. But that's the thing. Like yes, we all love the A leagues, the APL, are supposed to be held at a higher standard. They're supposed to be held at the highest standard in Australian football, both because they've got the most money and B, because they have artificially ensured that they will remain the highest standard more so than everybody else. So, of course, they are going to be examined with more of a magnifying glass than a state league or an NPL side. That is what they have chosen. And yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I keep.
We are not even halfway into the season, and we are getting into real navel-gazing territory. But something that I did mention, to you guys off air. Would we be in such a state if Australia was actually on the way to Qatar? Or would there be such a widespread discussion of where the game is going if Australia was, in a better position to qualify for the World Cup? Or
still think they'd be not. I feel as though there would still be significant anger surrounding ad breaks and being inserted into games and the infrastructure on Paramount Plus. I don't think the form of the national teams would affect those discussions.
But it wouldn't feel
you're right.
Existential.
Yeah, there wouldn't be this existential atmosphere.
How much, how transformative or how widespread a discussion on the national second division be? How much would it be on the domestic transfer system if the Socceroos weren't in the state that they were in, or the Matildas, for example, forcing us to question why Australian football is doing what it is doing at this point in time, or what it has done over the past 10 to 15 years?
I would say I think those discussions would still be ongoing because I'm going to be honest, I see those things. A lot of the things that have to do around that are both because they are good ideas, if done, implemented correctly, but they're also FA and the A-League's split was probably a bigger factor behind those being pushed than the former. Because these were being pushed when the Socceroos were on the 10-game winning streak. And
I mean, in a public sense. Not with respect to who's driving the discussion to the public, but the public's response to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's that the domestic failures seem to line up with the crumbling of our World Cup hopes. That's when it starts feeling urgent and desperate. I think that's just human nature. And, how connected those two things are is up for debate when most of our national team players play overseas and many of them were developed overseas. And, maybe our new Socceroos will emerge from overseas as I try and trigger Nick D'Urbano into joining the conversation. But, yeah,
we're waiting
I think it's just human nature. And at the moment, we're just killing time until D'Urbano comes off the long run up.
Volpato to the end. There's a lot of our league to talk about still.
Something I should add, I think, is that the discussion pre-game for the Sydney W League or A-League women's match, I should say, was very good. I thought 8 minutes, and they hit off all the big talking points and viewed the state of women's football in this country with a critical lens. So props to Grace Gill and Chloe Lagazzo and Tara Rushton for that segment. I thought that was a welcome change of editorial direction, and I hope that they are starting to see which way the wind's blowing, and will reflect better the mood of the football populace with, I guess, the editorial direction of the coverage from here on in. I hope that signals a shift.
Because when we talk about matters on the pitch, that was the thing that was most striking about Friday night with, talking about City Newcastle. Because, as I did mention earlier in the pod, like, that was at least the first half before the Regan red card and the second goal. However well it was formed, that was the best game of the season by a significant distance.
Explain why, Ante, because most people will say like the MacArthur's Mariners game with all those goals.
Because How many teams have absolutely taken it to Melbourne City in that kind of manner, pressed them into such difficulty, to an inability to play out, and not only press them to the point of an inability to play out, as you could probably see by Patrick Kaznorba's reaction post game, and that was something that was very evident post match presser. He really wasn't happy with that first half, and it was rather evident to see why, because it wasn't just Newcastle's press that gave them difficulty. It was the fact that Newcastle were able to play with the ball and give them difficulty, and really had them in their own half. Where a lot of games that City play, this season, last season, since Mombites has taken over, essentially, a lot of games that City play are in the opposition's half, because nobody or few teams really have the gumption or the bravery to really go at them. And people make note of Adelaide's ability to make City sweat. It's for very similar circumstances, because they're the only other team in the league that presses. And City have difficulty there. Why that happened, how City had to figure that out, what was going on, when we talk about the X's and O's, that was a really absorbing, detailed, gripping contest to that point. And City were able to, punish Newcastle for just one moment. 1 second ball, Jordan O'Doherty is caught slipping, and Berenguer hits him on the second ball. Newcastle's defense stretches, and there's a goal for 1-0 before just before half time.
It was a beautiful assist as well.
Exactly, but it's in those kinds of games where games can be decided by one moment, because it's teetering on a knife edge, and that's what made that game so good. But on the way back home, I was asking myself, how much of that was the fact that the game was a really good contest, and how much of that was down to the fact that, everything else, or the bar, is just so low. Friday night shouldn't be a counterpoint to the rest of the league. Friday night should be, or could be at least, should be probably the standard. Why don't we have more games like that in the A-League? If you follow this show, I think it'd be rather evident or rather apparent to see why that is. But it's just the game shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be a flash in the pan.
And the funny thing is, it sounds almost hypocritical, almost given the conversation we've had. But the fun thing is, the APL can really do nothing about that. Because if the APL starts trying to legislate for better football and change rules, that's worse than if they do nothing, because it's just infringing on what makes football football. Like, the reason the Jets are box office is because that's the way Arthur Papas is having the team play, because that's what he believes in, that's what he wants his side to play in, and that's how he coaches. They wouldn't be box office if they were being told to play that way, because they wouldn't do it as well.
Let me just say, you don't have to press Melbourne City to give them difficulty. There are numerous ways to spin this game. Don't get me wrong. You don't have to do that one way. Let me just clarify that, by the way.
If I may play the heel here, to what end are the Jets box office? Because the Lay Observer looks at them, they listen to what we've been saying about this awesome team every week. And so they're 11th. They've conceded 19 goals in 10 games. These guys are a bunch of losers. You're fun to watch, but they're not going to win anything.
Well, because they're the funnest team to watch whilst being owned by 4 other A-League A-League sides, being run off the sniff of an oily rag. The team's been put together. It's sort of like an island of misfit toys. The coaching staff are a bunch of ragtag blokes. They bumped around the NPL for a while, and they're finally getting their shot in the A-League. It's because they're fun. They believe in what they're doing. They commit to it, even though they are not losing games. They're not going away as the world's biggest Jets fan joins the stream. I'm not sure if he's actually trying to join or not, but Nick Stoll's on there. Maybe he got summoned by the Jets like Beetlejuice or something. No, but it's just because there's a layer of authenticity to the way that the Jets play. I just feel.
Let me make a shameless plug for something that will be out this week, talking about coaches like Pappas, and to use another example in Rudan and Warren Moon. They all coach to varying degrees with a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove because they have battle scars that other coaches who have been promoted within or groomed within A-League setups don't have. And that's been the cool thing about, let's say, Pappas, because it's not like he's just an NPL coach. He's someone who's had to build a wealth of experience over a decade. And just because he wasn't within, or hasn't for a while now been in an A-League setup, he's an unknown quantity within the realm of Australian football. And the same that applies to players applies to coaches. There aren't many chances going to be taken on coaches who are an unknown quantity. And that applies to players as well.
Is this because he is such a risky left field appointment? The only reason he's there is because there are 4 other clubs running this team and it doesn't matter what happens to them on the pitch?
1,000%.
Circumstance. And, you can say the same thing with Warren Moon at Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's almost...
I mean, you could have said the same thing about Mike Rudan at the Wellington Phoenix. How many people were banging down the Phoenix's door for that job?
Yeah. And he turned them around.
Yeah, I think his impact, although I'm sure many Knicks fans would not like to admit it, is still being felt there.
They played finals in his first year at the club. And they probably were the better team than Victory in that final game. But Ola Toivonen did Ola Toivonen things because Ola Toivonen is box office himself.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a player like a Max Burgess wouldn't be at Sydney, wouldn't be as prominent as he is at Sydney if it wasn't for that season, because he was a known quantity for someone who was outside the system. And that's the kind of lament that that underpins something like Friday night, because it shouldn't be an exception. It should be the standard.
Well, Melbourne City ended up winning 3-0, so I guess the status quo remains in spite of the impression that Newcastle clearly made on you.
I mean, City can be fun to watch as well. Like I said, like we've said on this podcast before, they might not know why they're good, but they're good. Like, they're fun to watch as well. Like, they score goals. They get out on the transition and they're freaking good at it. Like, they're fun to watch.
Ante, why don't we see more coaches press higher up the park in the A-League? Because to me, it seems a natural fit for Australian football when we're blessed with so many natural athletes to play the gegenpressing.
Because it takes bravery. Short answer, but it's sufficient because it takes bravery.
Shouldn't be so risk averse in this country. There's no relegation. There's no reason to be. Doesn't matter if it is.
There's nothing like skin in the game. But yeah, it's quite clear why teams, or 3 teams in a 12-team comp without relegation and with 6 teams in the finals, that's why only 3 teams press. Balls.
All right. As we're a little short-staffed tonight, I'm going to throw it
to
the floor.
Basically, it takes some of these.
Oh.
Cholo. We have many people who dress like Cholo but don't actually do it.
Speaking of which,
all right, hold on. Hold on. Which A-League's coach is most likely to do that?
I think it would depend which game.
You're taking this question so seriously.
Because it's legit. Like, legit. Come on, Josh. I want your answer as well.
I reckon Rudan.
Against Wellington. Not against Wellington.
Yeah.
against Rodan against Wellington in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Or maybe Steve Corica snaps one day. You know, there's all the tension.
And then all of a sudden, the hair grows. What's up, Evan?
Well, any other games do we want to hit while Joey tries to compose himself? We're a little short-staffed tonight, so I don't think we're going to go game by game through the entire week when there are about 8 or 9. Melbourne Victory 1, Central Coast Mariners 0. We've talked about probably the main talking points off the pitch. But for Victory, a late winner. It arrests their post-FFA Cup win hangover, I guess, the slide that's ensued. Ante, you were watching their loss to Western Sydney Wanderers during midweek as well. Where are the Victory at the moment? Because I felt Robbie Cruz, in less than 10 minutes on the park on Saturday night, did more than the rest of the starting 11 players combined.
And that also goes for Nishan Velupille.
Yeah, big impact from the young man.
I know...
the Nishan Skyline, the People's Super Sub.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if I've said it on this podcast, but at least I've said it to you guys. I'm a rather big fan of Nishan, and I think he's an impactful, damaging player who has, let's say, different elements to his game than those who start. Rojas has been prominent, but something that I've written about and something I received sizable criticism for, like how much of that is down to the fact that the wingers see so much of the ball from Melbourne Victory, and you're just not going to be, let's say, very flexible in possession if you have a Brox and Berlanti midfield. Bremer shifting deeper, Spranovic getting injured on during the week, on Saturday, kind of forces Popovic out of the norm. But look, it's hard to say anything definitive about Victory because you do have so much in terms of unavailability. But even then, how would Victory look with Ray Marchand and Berlanti in the midfield? Hey,
well, we've seen that. They were much better. Like, honestly, they weren't inspiring going forward, but they were able to suffocate teams and capitalize on mistakes.
Yeah, but
and
see,
they can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was the main point that I posed or proposed after the FFA Cup win is that with at full strength, Melbourne Victory are going to have a high base level, but how are they really going to hurt teams with the ball? Or is it primarily just going to be, the reactive norm that we'll see under Popovic, with Popovic teams? And, you remember that first season at Perth, they limped to the line that second half of the season after, really steaming out of the blocks. This season for the Victory, despite the unavailability, despite the, circumstance and the logistical difficulties that it creates on the pitch, we're kind of seeing a similar pattern.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting like radical changes from Victory. I thought they'd make finals, but talk of title contention I thought was premature when we were doing our kind of previews and stuff on FNR. And I also said at the time, and you can go back and check the FNR podcast if you want to test me on this, but I said if Ryan Marchand turns out to be good, Victory will make the finals and have a good season, a positive, improved season. And if he turns out to be a lemon, they'll be really bad. And it turns out that without him in the side, they've dipped significantly. So no coincidence there. And it all depends on how they can integrate these returning, I guess, more creative forward players back into the team, whether Rojas can start producing because he looks really low on confidence, whether Economides can be at full fitness and play more consistently, that they might get something more out of this attack. But yeah, they look a little bit limited still. Joey?
I did, like I said, didn't get a chance to watch many of the games because I was not spoiler alert for when I was up in Sydney on Canteen Australia business. But following along with a whole bunch of the games, it appears as though Victory fans might be turning against their goalkeeper. And I was putting the question to you guys that obviously, more across the games than I. Will we be seeing Matt Acton at some point soon?
Does it really is it the primary cause or the core issue with respect to Victory's struggle?
I mean, it's not the core issue, but I mean, goalkeepers can be would MacArthur have made finals in their first year if Federici hadn't been insane for numerous games? So, if it's the difference between finals football and not playing finals football, it can be a huge thing.
Look, I understand it can make a difference, but
it's papering over cracks. I understand, but I guess what I'm asking is, would this actually be papering over cracks if they did this, or is it even worth doing?
I would say the one benefit before you go, Ante, is that they would maybe be able to move the defensive line a little bit higher because Acton doesn't have concrete blocks for feet.
But that you also have to take into account who would be playing in that defensive line. It's not exactly,
Well, one of them hasn't played professional football in a year and a half. So
yeah, if they're on the pitch, it's not like you can play a really high defensive line with the likes of BJ Hamel and Spiranovic. This is kind of what Victory are, and even with Miranda, I'm unsure if Victory can actually or Victory have the flexibility to shift away from how they have played this season.
All right, I want to move on. I'm probably the other big talking point from the weekend. MacArthur 4, Adelaide United 1. This match saw Adelaide start perfectly. Craig Goodwin with the opening goal after 20 minutes, but they just collapsed for halftime and it continued into the second half.
I blame the
MacArthur
shorts.
racked up 31 total shots in this match. 31, 14
with less
on
of the
target.
ball, wasn't it? Significantly less of the ball.
Yeah, it was not significantly, but 54-46 Adelaide's way in the possession stakes. And I think this will signal a conservative shift from Calvart yet again. He played Louis Dorigo as, I guess, kind of a lone six in this match, which was a significant change from the double pivot that he's previously been wedded to. I mean, they got exposed on the counter-attack, so I think he's going to go back to the tried and true, unfortunately.
Not much else to say there. You know how he's going to respond.
Craig Noon was excellent, I have to say, in this match. He was absolutely everywhere, and he provided a lot of creative thrust in the final third. Ulysses Davila actually was allowed to dribble a couple of times, which I liked. I mean, in the final third only, nothing in the defensive half, but that was he had a couple of nice touches, and I assume didn't get yelled at for it, but. It was also nice to see a goal from Al Hassan Toure, his first ever goal for MacArthur, and his first senior goal in a long, long time. It seems a distant memory that FFA Cup final against Melbourne City sort of dropped off in terms of fitness and form, and I still think he's got something. I still think he's got talent in the 18-yard box.
It's a matter of confidence. Confidence that comes with
the same thing.
Consistency.
I mean, that's the same thing with all strikers. Strikers are head cases. I know I was a striker. They're like the ice hockey. They're the football's version of ice hockey goalkeepers.
Goalkeepers are the version of ice hockey goalkeepers.
No, I kind of feel like that. Like I feel like probably I don't know. I'm very tired, but yeah. Strikers are head cases too.
Goalkeeping minutiae. Before I forget. Mark Birighitti in the Victory Mariners game being so spooked by the around-the-wall Jason Davidson free kick in the final that he was touching his right-hand post when Davidson took a free kick from a similar position in the 90. and it was only just wide. He just dinked it, and he had the whole goal to recover. I honestly think that that final has done some like mentally scarring damage to the confidence of the Mariners, to be honest. But speaking of Al Hassan Toure, I mean, I've seen him do things I haven't seen other Australian or A-League strikers do in a while. Like these sort of instinctive finishes that he's done for the Ollie Roos. Obviously, there's the goal he scored on the angle in the cup final, but there've been moments, few and far between, and it's sort of tantalising. But Ante, I mean, you've been critical of Adelaide United's recruitment because they seem intent on not starting his younger brother by bringing this Japanese target man in.
Yeah. Getting to watch Ibusuki in person, I frankly didn't see it. And something I made reference to, last week. Yeah, another shameless plug. It was a panic signing. It was a panic signing. They could have been very creative, and they could have given, however much people might want to disagree with that, they could have played, probably the third. They could have played Blackwood. They could have played Moture. They could have even played Goodwin as a 9 and given more scope to the likes of Aaron Kunda and Clough and Lockie Brook, and as well as and Bernardo as well on the wings, because there's not a lot of room for those players because Craig Goodwin plays on the left wing and that's his position, but he's a winger who can't dribble, but he can shoot. And he can he can provide touches here and there. So I don't see how putting him as a 9 with the players Adelaide already have, or the wingers Adelaide already have, as a net loss. But
first you're telling me Craig Goodwin should play left back. Now you're telling me he's a striker.
He can play that. He can play that position if he's not going to play left back. And if he is going to play in an attacking role, why not? Obviously, it may not be as conducive over the course of the game in terms of the game complexion as it would be with Ben Halloran when he played, significant amounts of, as a 9 under Marco Kurtz. But I reckon he could be impactful. But at the same time, you could play Blackwood and you could play Toure, but Villa doesn't want to do that.
Well, the reason he won't is because, especially, in Moture's case, he doesn't have the big hulking frame of Hiroshi Ibusuki, which is how Adelaide, in fairness, in this game, scored their first goal. It was just his disruptive force, his body getting in the way, making defenders second guess, and he was able to sort of shield this he didn't really control it. He just sort of bumped the defender out the way and managed just to chest it and get it onto somebody else, and they end up scoring a few moments after that win off the second ball. So
would you say he delivers destruction in the box,
or at least on the edge of it in this case? Yes. But yeah, I'm not too impressed. I don't think Adelaide have had a particularly good record signing visa forwards in the last several seasons. I don't think their overseas recruitment is anything to write home about, which is a shame considering they've got foreign owners that you would have hoped had connections. But I think it's time that we welcome a late entrant international curriculum. A bit of second half reinforcements as we go over the hour mark. Nick D'Urbano, good evening and welcome. Sorry.
Hey guys, can you hear me nice and fine? Coming
Matt's
through all right?
Halls, I should say. As Joey
slaps
the photo.
No, all good, all good. What have I missed, guys? What have I missed? 3 press conferences today, guys. It's been a busy evening. So, what's been going on?
Well, we've had a lot of navel gazing and depression, and then we talked about how good the Jets are for a while. And
just to perk ourselves up,
Yeah, a little bit of... we've gone through some of the other A-League games, but I think the topic we've been keeping on ice until your arrival is Christian Volpato, who scored his first goal for AS Roma this weekend, just 3 minutes after coming on as a 62nd minute substitute against Hellas Verona. Nick, you are highly critical of the idea that Christian Volpato, just because he got minutes for Roma as a human victory cigar, was worthy of a national team call-up. Have you changed your tune now?
Can I just preface this just by saying that, because I feel like some people might be misconstruing sort of my view on Christian Volpato. First of all, I am very, very happy for him that he scored and he played and he got half an hour yesterday.
So happy.
Yeah. You don't see youngsters like at all, like not even just Aussie, just in general, scoring like that in their debut. Like, I mean, he was very good in his half an hour and he took his goal brilliantly. I know it was from a stoppage, but to hit it through a forest of players and score it like that, it was brilliant. And I want him to succeed. I think that people see it as if, I'm out here as some grim reaper who just doesn't want kids to succeed, and I'm basically the Grinch, and that, like, why are you like this? Why do you see that, other players should be getting minutes before him, the Socceroos and that? It's like, no, well, let me just sort of bring it back, because I feel like we're not looking at this with context in terms of the game this morning when you're looking at it from a club level, but also from a Socceroos level. And, like the one thing we've got to remember before we jump into this, that there's many moving parts to it. And I was talking to Ante about it in the box before. There's one thing scoring a goal, and we've seen that many youngsters. We've all watched plenty of football in European football, especially. That many youngsters burst onto the scene, score a goal, put in a big performance. You don't see them again for quite some time. They don't kick on. They don't get the minutes after that. They might play one or two more times that season, and that's about it. Roma this morning had a lot of players out. Now, Volpato took his opportunity, but in terms of going forward, and you take into context Roma's season, they're battling for Europe right now. They had a host of players out, guys like Nicola Zaniolo, Stefan El-Shaarawy, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Aldor Shmodorov, first-team regulars. These aren't guys that, weren't playing at all. These aren't guys that were just squad members. These are players, when you look at the minutes they were playing this year, they were playing 90 minutes, starting games, coming off the bench, everything like that. They were playing a lot of football. And when you look at Mourinho's system, he had gone, stuck with that Zaniolo-Abraham partnership. This morning, he didn't have that. He went to Afenajan, which is a player I want to get to a little bit later, because he's kind of the example to look at in terms of a young player taking their opportunity at Roma. But when these guys come back, so Zaniolo's back next week from suspension. El-Shaarawy and Mkhitaryan are a couple of weeks away. I think Shmodorov as well is pretty close. What's going to happen then? Because right now, Roma, similarly to the Socceroos right now, are at that point where they need to win games. And we know Jose Mourinho, he will probably revert to type. And type being best players available are going to play the game. My trusty veterans are going to play. I know Henrik Mkhitaryan might be on the way out at the end of the season, same with Zaniolo, and he said all this stuff about my squad isn't good enough, blah, 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 but he's kept playing them. Nothing's changed, all right? Mourinho says a lot, but then sometimes he doesn't really go through with it. So whether he keeps on playing, I think that's the most important thing. Before we start saying, let's cap him for the Japan and Saudi Arabia game, let's give it a bit longer. Because let's see if he actually keeps playing from here in the next game and in the games to follow. Is he going to keep getting minutes? Is he going to kick on from here? Because by all means, he might have scored, but it's down to Jose now to keep giving him those opportunities. Because hell, we've seen that many players have a big splash on debut, and then we don't see them make that move to the national team. Josh, you made the anecdote in the group chat before, Federico Macheda. I know it's very different in terms of apples and oranges, but his one goal didn't warrant selection for the Azzurri straight afterwards. So we need to kind of see the continuity from here. Like, he was good this morning, but we want to see more of it. But in terms of the Socceroos, okay, and also just before that, the Felix Afenajan example is probably the best example that he might get more opportunities, because he scored 2 goals for Roma a few months ago and he's kept playing, he's kept getting minutes. He's a different player to Volpato, though. He's a winger/9. Remember, Volpato's more of a 10. In Roma's system with a 3-4-1-2, the moment that the chances for him are actually a lot less than when it was in a 4-2-3-1. Because Lorenzo Pellegrini is going to occupy that. And it's going to be harder for him. It's just being brutally honest. It's going to be hard for him to see consistent minutes for the end of the season unless Mourinho just completely changes everything and goes, you know what, stuff it. I'm going to play Volpato every game for the rest of the season. And to be honest, let's be real. I think us all as Aussies, if he was going to play for the Socceroos, we'd love to see him play every week. This is just being honest. I want to see the kid bloody play. I want to see him do that every week. Anyone would. You don't want to see the young kids do well. Like, you want to see the kids do well. But in terms of the Socceroo stuff, all right, the water is a bit murkier here. The water is a bit murkier here because the discourse surrounding this, I don't know what it's been about this past month, but my God, this discourse has been freaking tiring, whether it's been about Christian Volpato, Tony G, Graham Arnold, National Second Division, Paramount Plus, ad breaks, everything else in between. It has been so tiresome. And this is just another chapter to it. It just feels like it's always the same old thing. And
are we the baddies?
Maybe not us, because I feel like we're the ones that always are bringing it, you know, like we're the ones that are kind of giving people the reality check. Because I feel like sometimes people don't see it. Just putting it bluntly here, fellas.
We're
just
incredibly humble as well.
No, I'm just saying. I'm looking at the feedback as well that we get here, guys. This is not just me saying it. This is coming from other people. That people enjoy it for the, you know, no BS attitude that we take. All right.
Let's bring the Socceroos into it.
Sorry, firstly, I would like actually to add some BS to this stream, just briefly. Impact off the bench. Nick
Stoll. Well, Nick.
Mini match maestro.
Gonna have to unmute yourself, mate.
I got some feedback for you. All right, this stream has gone too long. 1 hour and 11 minutes. I'm just here to tell you that we've gone over the hour mark. My only job in this podcast is to promise that this show will go over an hour. And I was listening in some good debates, some excellent points made. Really enjoying myself. And then tick, 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 tick. I just felt that 60-minute coming up. And I thought, I got to get in. I got to stop this nonsense. All right. I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. But, you know, I just want to come in, just start putting a bit of, I wanted to do a Fergie, start pointing at the watch, start saying, hey, look, this is going on too long. Time to blow.
No. Before you go on, Stoll, give us a hot take. Give us a hot take about something that you saw this week.
Give me a topic and I'll give you a take.
Was Ben Garuccio's goal the best goal of all time, Nick Stoll?
Yeah, you know what I like what Joey actually tweeted was this one was deliberate, all right? Because we had to fake for so long that Riley McGree actually knew what he was doing. All right, let's be honest. Riley McGree just was like, the ball came in, he probably got scared, threw his foot up, and it was like the crazy. You know, it's one of those goals that you see like on Reddit one day, like but in someone's backyard. And it's like, you know, Reddit, never tell me the odds. Like that kind of, you know, the typical thing, someone throws a dart up in the air and it lands right on the bullseye, you know, after hitting 8 different things. It was a very nice goal. How about the outside of the foot cross as well? Oof, you got to like that.
Nice.
It was good. I reckon he needs to be called up for Italy. The Azzurri definitely need. Look, a lot of people will say to me, it's premature. We need to see more. But, man, look, Italy's going to know. They're coming into a crucial World Cup fight. They need someone like Garuccio who can get in there and show that focus.
Especially always injured. Fine. They need a left back, man.
I was just reading on La Gazzetta, you know, I'm fluent in Italian, and La Gazzetta was saying that actually they're worried that Australia is going to actually get him if Italy doesn't call him up. That's the big fear in Italy. They're saying like, oh my God, you know, we better just get this guy in the squad because who knows what's going to happen.
You know, I was reading in the in the Devil Sport as well that they were worried that, you know, it says a lot more about the big name agent pathways if Italy can't cap Christian Volpato after, you know, one big game. But anyways. Nick, you got anything else?
Nick, Stoll, is Italian football worried at all about the standard of their youth development that Ben Garuccio wasn't deemed good enough for Serie A?
Yeah, I mean, they've got big question marks because AC Milan didn't identify him. Juventus didn't identify him. Napoli, Atalanta. We all talk about Atalanta.
No, I heard that Inter did identify him, but he was deemed too small.
He was thrown out of their 5th minute, I think. Like, he was done.
All right. You know what? You know what the problem is in Italy? They got like this national second division. It just destroys their league. They should be more focused if they just had single league.
You know what they have to do? They have to take out the mono-ethnic clubs like Hellas Verona. They have to get them out of it.
That's it. They don't get many supporters.
I mean, it's a disgrace. They've got flags in the stands.
Nah, look.
They used to have flags on their jerseys. That's how disgraceful it was.
We're being funny, but
got to get some black masking tape over that shit.
when you look at like Italy and you think like, it's a very successful league, you look at it now and you think, what can we learn from it? That's always my thing, is what can we got to look at all these leagues around the world and learn, and that's how we progress. I think that's kind of what really our podcast is all about. I look at someone like AC Milan, and I think that was originally a cricket team, and now it's a very successful football team. So why don't we give the Sydney Sixers the next A-League license, or the Perth Scorchers, or the Melbourne Renegades? I'm out of BBL.
The Swatties.
That I know.
The Swatties. Other blood.
No, hold on.
Cricket teams end up being very successful Champions League winning football teams.
AC Milan was founded by Englishmen, yeah?
Yes.
That means we need the Anglos running things again here in Australian football, mate.
That's it. You're right. Okay.
The Anglos need to come back in.
And I believe, was Barcelona founded by Swiss students, or is it Basel was founded by? I think Barcelona was founded by Swiss students or something. Is that?
You're the Barca fan.
You're the Barca.
Drawing a blank.
Whatever, man. I don't know. Look, I just wanted to give a quick plug to Stan Sport FC. I don't know if anyone saw the interview with Ange Postecoglou. Shout out if he didn't. Was
that when him and Foz buried the hatch for the second time after previously doing so on the World Game in 2011?
Look, you remember, like in Dr. Phil,
losing the macho man getting married a second time, man.
You remember in Dr. Phil when he'd kind of like two people be hating on each other, and then he'd bring them together at the end of the episode, and everyone really liked it. Clearly, that's a successful television model, right? So, if you have a beef in Australian football, come on to Stan Sport FC, and we're going to be on every week. Ante versus every single person in Australian football media.
Well, this one we can get Ante and Simon Hill.
That's right.
Hey, no, that's no beef, man. That's no beef.
You know what? One thing I will say about this is people do like freak out a little bit too much. This is a very serious. I'm actually making a serious point now. When you just disagree, and I don't know why it's such a big deal, right? Like I see people, like, honestly, I read in the people's tweets and stuff, and I'm disagreeing with some, and I'm agreeing with some, and I'm going through it, and and it's all good. But when I hang out with my mates, I disagree with them almost every single second of the day about every single opinion that gets thrown out there. All right, it's always
how
just
could they not disagree with
half
you
your
with
interaction.
come out with stuff?
Yeah, half your interactions with us in the group chat is you just hanging shit on us for something that we've done.
That's it. That's like, but like, I think the basis of most of my friendships is just making fun of my friends. Like, yeah, I remember once my girlfriend was hanging out with me and my two best friends at the time, and it was the first time she'd met him. And then, like, after an hour, she's like, "Do you guys like each other? Like, all you guys do is just bang, 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 bang." I was like, "This is the best. This is my favorite thing to do. This is so much love." So, I don't know. I see a lot of drama and craziness on the timeline, and I just think, enjoy it. It's all good. It's all football. It's all. Look, we've been debating all this shit for 40 years, like.
And we haven't got bored of it yet.
And also, there's never going to be consensus as well. That's always the other thing. If we can all just push in the same direction. Yeah, if we all unite. It's never going to happen. It's impossible. Everyone has a different opinion, so it's okay. Let's just do the most logical one. Which that's the weird thing that sometimes we don't do.
There's the big asterisk.
Go on.
I do have one thing. I very much want to agree with Nick Stoll about. We need to learn stuff from Italian football. Maybe not how to qualify for a World Cup, but there's certainly things that we can learn from Italian football.
No, but the thing is, we talk about uniting a game, right? Italy's a good example. You ever seen an Italian football debate show? It's like El Chiringuito. It's just chaos. There's people yelling at each other all the time. People accusing each other. There's Fabio Capello interviewing, I don't know, Antonio Conte after the game. Fabio Capello's in the studio, and he'll just openly say, like, your team was crap. What happened today? El Chiringuito.
The only time there's ever any love is when it's between Spalletti and Mourinho. Everyone else is at each other's throats.
And that's how it's going to be, and that's all right. But I don't
know. That's what kills me, Stoll, is the fragility in Australian football.
Yeah,
people are so afraid to.
That's it.
Criticize, and people are so afraid to be criticized.
We have a brutal spirit.
Quite frankly, people are. people in Australian football are so preoccupied with being seen as a good bloke, as opposed to actually being competent.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also
that applies to officials, that applies to coaches.
But it's also like, if you think about so many people who've risen to the top, and I'm into the very, very, very top. A lot of it has been the good bloke aspect has been like, in Mario, when you get like the little mushroom, the boost, that's the good bloke boost. You can be a worse driver, and if you get a few of those, you can overtake quite a few people.
And
we should get Pakura here for the Mario Kart reference.
No, but Joey. I don't know. Is there any other points we missed before we wrap up the show?
I was gonna finish up.
I did have a very serious question for Nick D'Urbano.
Yes.
It's actually serious. This isn't a bait and switch.
Yeah, no.
Rip on Italy again. Italy are a joke enough. I don't need to add to it. Christian Volpato. On the Italy depth chart, give me a bit of an approximation of where Christian Volpato would actually be on Italy's depth chart right now.
Italy took a squad.
Do the Moneyball one.
Okay.
There's the Yankees.
Stop. Like I could go like that, but that would feel like I'd be being almost too harsh. But I'll sum it up.
I think it's very important to contextualize this. We're losing to Italy. Like people, how many people is he actually behind at Italy?
I don't think we should genuinely be worried about losing him to the Italian national team. Not now.
I mean, is Australia more
a legitimate question? I think is is he good enough to be called up to the Socceroos?
All right.
I know, but I'm just being devil's advocate. I just want to put this in context. That's another discussion. All right, everybody except Nick D'Urbano, shut up. Nick, where is he on the depth chart?
Look. Mancini called up in the last international break a squad of about 45 to 50 players, which also included Mario Balotelli, who's been, as Josh and I have spoken about a lot in F&I, is, playing in Turkey and is way down, the proverbial depth chart has been called up in years. And he got called up to the camp. And there were a lot of other attackers. There was about 12 or 15 attackers. And there were a lot as well that were injured. I could probably rattle off at least, including Federico Chiesa, who's been called up recently as well, who's done his knee. There would be at least 25 to 30 players ahead of him right now. All wingers, all 10s, all strikers. There would be a lot. I'm not BSing this for 1 second because
can I give an example? So I just looked it up. Recent call-ups for the Italian national team, right? For players who've never played for the national team before. So you're bringing them in to make their debut. João Pedro, who is Brazilian original. Maybe Italy they're looking all around the world. They've seen the Brazilians. They want to see what they've got. He's played 241 games for Cagliari, scoring 81 goals. That was, and they brought him up for the very first time. Yeah. Mattia Zaccagni. Okay.
Stoll, do you want me to get him up because I can get the proper pronunciation if you're okay?
Grazie. That would be, he's played 228 games, 22 goals.
And Zaccagni's not a first-team player at Lazio either. That's also for context. He's been in and out of the team since he went there.
So, look, I think it's great that an 18-year-old Australian scored in Serie A. It's mad. It's actually really cool.
It's insane. It's so good.
And you know what? All the power to him. I hope he scores every time he ever plays. And it's mad. But also, we just need to cool our jet. There needs to be more evidence. Okay. Otherwise, the exception is if you are the greatest talent scout I've ever seen, and you can tell within 35 minutes of football, this kid's gone to the top.
We don't even start Jukic and genre. Yeah.
Why are we clamoring for This is. Well, no,
okay. I wanted to ask the follow-up question now. So we've established that Volpato is about, let's be super generous and say he's 30th on the Italian depth chart for attackers. Who is 30th on, pretending Christian Volpato doesn't exist, who is 30th on Australia's depth chart for attackers?
Andy Brennan.
Legit, not Andy. He's who is 30th?
Okay, what position?
As an attacker, so the same position as Volpato. Nick, what would you say Volpato's best?
It's going to be a long pod if we have to name 29.
Mate, if we're putting so you want me to rank Volpato in terms of
No, I'm just trying to get the equivalent. So if Volpato is as far away from the Italian national team as X is far away from the Socceroos national team.
Chris Wood.
No. If we're taking into consideration probably players throughout the whole A-League, I'd probably say Henry Hoare. Maybe I don't know, probably one of the fodders who have been in and out of A-League teams, like a substitute attacker, like Jez Lofthouse, Henry Hoare,
George Blackwood,
Nick Fitzgerald, someone like that. That's 30th, and they're far down the pecking order.
No way.
I've had a random person message in saying it's Damien Yakonis.
No, actually, that's good engagement.
Right, it might be Harrison Sawyer
at TNC football. Give us 29 strikers in Australia, and then we can
someone will actually do that. Careful what you wish for.
Okay, just I want to make this point really clear, because the few things that I'm going to be just cut the BS here. I had a subtweet, and I saw someone in my mentions as well going on about, the fact, we're calling up Mitch Duke and we're calling up Marco Tilio. Why isn't Christian Volpato being selected? Because he's scoring goals in Italy right now. Well, he scored a goal. If we're talking in plurals, it's a goal. He didn't score 2, he scored 1. And first of all, we've got to remember a couple of things. Mitchell Duke and Christian Volpato are not the same player. As much as I think Mitchell Duke, if all Australian attackers were fit, I don't think he's in Australia's best 23. I'd be having Adam Taggart ahead of him. It's apples and freaking oranges. It's the same thing with Marco Tilio. At that point in time in January, as much as Tilio wasn't starting for City, there was a pre-established body of work at senior level. With Christian Volpato, people are looking at Primavera highlights, and we're making judgments off that, and a 1-minute cameo in the 93rd minute of a 3-0 drubbing against Inter. They were making judgments off that and saying, we should select him. And they see him play for half an hour this morning. They've never watched Serie A in their life, or they've watched it for the first time just for now, and they've gone, yeah, we've got to cap him. We've got to think about context here, fellas. The next lot of games, arguably the 2 biggest games in Australian football, for the Socceroos since the Serie A games. Let's be real. These are the biggest games since then. Putting him in that environment, throwing him in the deep end. Do we really think that we're going to beat Japan and Saudi Arabia because we call up Christian Volpato? It would be bloody unbelievable. Imagine the story comes out of that. He gets selected, he comes on, he scores the winner, inspires us over the line. But in reality, is that going to change anything? When Ante, you mentioned, Aiden Hrustic can't even get minutes, and he's a better player than Volpato right now. You've got Denny Jonro, who should be playing. Why aren't we talking about Denny Jonro? Why? Because he's not an attacking midfielder and he's a 6. Because, we need more attacking players. No, there are so many more issues with Australian football before us calling up bloody Christian Volpato. Please, for God's sake, look at the whole – look at everything else. I'm so sick of this. If he plays well for the next 3 weeks and he dominates every single week and he goes on fire next couple of weeks and he plays well, yes, select him. Bring him along. You know what? Fantastic. Take him because he's done the body of work. But it's been half an hour. Please, 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
It's more important.
This podcast has been longer than his career in Serie A.
It's more important to tweet for the retweets and the e-cred and the e-clout than actually making an honest assessment.
But this is an understandable reaction. I can understand it because it is the hashtag clamour for an Australian player actually making an impact in the top league.
We need NRI.
And we don't have it. We don't have Mark Bresciano anymore, playing week in, week out in Serie A as he did for several years. We don't have anyone in the Premier League, so that I can understand the impulse of latching onto a guy who plays for a club you've actually heard of and watched.
I mean, you're wearing
even if he's only played 35 minutes.
Can I also say, sometimes it happens. For example, Gavi played about 8 games for Barcelona and was in the Spanish national team and actually did really well.
Spain is notorious for cheap caps.
It's different though.
It is. I'm going to explain also why it's different. He was also in the Spain under 17, under 18, under 19, that under 21s. So at the very least, Luis Enrique had seen him in the system, how he can work, and he got in.
Meanwhile, Spain's best midfielder has 1 international cap.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And been one of the best players in Serie A because Because he's not a known quantity. Because he plays outside of Spain. He's not valued, Luis Alberto. But
I think he's talking about Canales.
Bro, he plays for Betis. He doesn't play in Serie A.
No, I think he was saying that Spain's best bid.
But even then, Canales has, I think, less than 20 caps.
Yeah.
And okay, he had knee injury, but like, all right, let's not get into this. Cheap doling out of the Spanish national team. The reality is,
El Nacional curriculum.
Looking to Christian Volpato to salvage our World Cup qualification campaign, which has been absolutely messed with, and we should not be in the position we are in. Yeah.
Listen, let me basically sum up the last half an hour.
We should have a dead rubber coming up in the last game, if the team would be managed properly, and then you could cap him in that one.
But he needs to play 4 games. He needs to play 4 games. That's the thing. 4 games.
I didn't say tie him. I just said cap him.
Yes.
Shout out to one friend of the pod, Geraldo, who made very, very astute note of the fact that we had a head start because Oman beat Japan. And now we're behind the 8 ball.
Listen, I'm just going to sum up.
World Cup qualification.
Can I just say before I go, it's another example of Australian football looking for a saviour. We love a saviour, whether it's an 18-year-old kid, whether it's the coach, the Gustafsson was meant to be the saviour for the Matildas, whether it's the coach that everyone wants to bring in to replace Arnie, which probably doesn't even really exist, whether it's James Johnson. Oh, James Johnson, he's a football guy. He's going to fix everything. Oh, new broadcast deal. That's going to fix the A-League. We keep looking for saviours. It's not going to happen. This thing is, I mean.
Where do we stop? Bravo, man.
Two things. One, on the subject of James Johnson, cheap plug, tomorrow, the worldwide leader in sports, James Johnson drops a grenade. No more. Mm-hmm. Secondly,
he says, I'm the best host. That's huge.
I didn't ask him that. Secondly, I'm just going to summarize the last half an hour. Nick Stoll came on to tell us all to hurry up and finish up. And then we spent half an hour talking about, I don't know what. There was Volpato.
Canales doesn't have more caps.
Yeah, like we were on Volpato for a while, and then Canales for Spain, and then we had a bit of an anecdote about Nick hanging out with his girlfriend and best mates, and I don't know.
This is the most animated the Michael Lynch commemorative media box here at Amy Park has been since pre-COVID. Because there's never any, there's never the commentary team barely here anymore. It's dead all the time. So I think these walls, they're hearing screams I haven't heard since the Fox Sports era.
Can I give a shout out before we go?
Oh, go on.
Yeah.
We're at 92 minutes. Sorry, mate. Can't do it, man.
Quick shout out to Josh for the NPL commentary that I really enjoyed. I've only ever seen the clips, but really enjoyed that. Joey and Nick hosting that first game. Again, I couldn't see that because of a little technical issues, but then I saw it later on YouTube and Joey on the project. That was very well said, and that was great that got out there. And Ante, not much for you this week. Sorry, mate. You're going to have to lift your game.
I don't care. Melbourne Knights are going to win the league, so fuck everything else, though.
That's it. That's it.
Well, there's your sliding back into our good graces, Nick.
Not again. It's a quadruple.
Okay. We're going off air now.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble.
I'll let the press box crew get home at some point, so we've got to call it a night. But thank you to everybody who's been listening and watching. Thank you to both Nicks for their impact off the bench. Read Joey and Ante's pieces coming out this week as well.
I have 2 tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, we know. He'll be relentlessly promoting it on his Twitter, so you don't have to plug it here. And we'll say good night here on TNC Football. Talk to you again next week.
Ciao.